Does the call of the tarot keep pulling you in, but you don't know where to start? Or you started and you're just like, what the fuck am I doing? If so, you're in the right place. I've got some thoughts for you. Hey, my name is Jenna, and this is my debut YouTube video on my new channel, Generally Speaking. Over the past couple of months, I've been going live on TikTok doing reflective tarot readings, and I've had quite a few people ask me how I got into it and how I got comfortable with the cards, and I have so much to say about it, so I made a whole YouTube video, or whole YouTube channel for it. Of course, there's going to be other things too, which you can find out more in my bio, but yeah, for right now, this is it! We're starting with this. So a bit about my tarot backstory is I was first introduced to them by a coworker who gave me a reading back, I think in 2019, and I bought my own deck shortly after because I was just enchanted. I was like, what? How? What? Who? And so I didn't really dive that deep into them. I kind of was a little bit intimidated, very doubtful, very skeptical, like, what is this even? Do I have abilities? I had no idea how to start with that. I would dabble, but I didn't have any sort of solid routine. So over the past few years, I've gotten more serious about it, so to speak. It's not it. And by serious, I just mean more disciplined and more structured with it. I started doing full and new moon tarot readings for myself, where I would do a reading just to reflect on what was fading out of my life or coming into it, what needed to be celebrated, what needed to be released, that kind of thing. And I would journal about it. So yeah, just integrating all of those lessons from the, learning how to integrate all the lessons from the readings, because when you do a reading, they're very impactful and emotional, and then learning how to actually implement them into your life is a whole other story. And yeah, I would do readings for friends, and then that eventually led me to doing TikTok live readings. And I like to think I have a unique and interdisciplinary approach to tarot because I have been in therapy also, Western therapy for 10 years almost. And, there's a lot of overlaps between psychology and spirituality. And I am not claiming to be a professional by any means, but I've certainly learned a lot. So yeah, I combine my practical skills-based grounding techniques and those kinds of things that I've learned in therapy with the wisdom that the tarot has to offer, the mystery of it all. And I'm a Virgo. I have Virgo stellium. I've got lots of planets cuddling up in my 12th house, so I'm kind of wise, and I will give you homework if you get a tarot reading from me. And this will be a 2-part video because I just have a lot to say. Yeah. And a couple important things to note before I get started on the tips. I am a full believer that we are all students for life. I still feel like I'm very new to this. I just know that I have a lot to offer to people who are completely new to it. So if you have some things you'd like to share, I'd love to hear them. I love learning with other people, learning from other people. And it's kind of nice to know that I'll never know all there is to know about it. You're always going to learn something new. So, and every time I read, it's something else. One card's not going to have the same meaning across all readings and experiences. So yeah, very cool. And of course, take or leave what I'm about to say. Everyone's journey is unique. And also these tips are in no particular order. I mean, they're kind of in an order, but yeah, you just have to see them all. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy, and this helps you feel more confident in starting your journey reading for yourself or other people. And of course, there's no pressure to read for other people. So it's, yeah, totally up to you. So without further ado, my first tip for beginner readers, and this might be a hot take to some, but it's my opinion. Tarot is not going to give you a cut and dry answer to questions. There are many people out there that have this expectation that you can just ask a question and it's going to say yes or no. Like,
is Jimmy going to come back to me? Yes.
Are you going to win the lottery tomorrow? No.
You know, and it just, in my opinion, it doesn't work like that. Having the expectation that tarot is a predictor of fate or your destiny is like using it as a magic 8-ball, and you're just not going to get as much benefit from that if you treat it that way. It'll be much less impactful that way than if you were to use it as a tool and a mirror to your psyche, soul, experience, and gain a new perspective that you might not have thought of before. Now, it is okay to have a question, although I do tend to leave mine open in general, especially if I'm using a spread that has a theme or a subject, because then the placements of the cards each have their own little like question or topic. So you don't really need a question of your own, although you can just leave it broad and open-ended, like what do I need to know, or like asking what kind of guidance would be helpful in this situation. And you don't even need to use a spread if you don't want to. I don't know if you heard that, somebody just zoomed by. But yeah, you don't need a spread. You can just say, hey, what do I need to know? And then whatever flies out, and then you can just piece it all together. The cards also just have like a way of knowing what you're reading about, you know? Like once you do the reading, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that is applicable. And you just can't really go wrong. Even if you don't have a question in mind, if you just kind of like meditate and focus on the subject. It doesn't need to be like a long, drawn-out meditation. It could just be like a few minutes before you start reading, just holding the cards and kind of like charging them with your intention or seeking guidance, you know, whatever it is, just kind of, yeah. Also, I feel it is important to note, if you are prone to doom spiraling and are terrified of uncertainty, I would strongly suggest addressing that first, ideally with a mental health professional. There's multiple ways of going about addressing fears and uncertainty, and it doesn't always have to be with a mental health professional, because I know that there are barriers to that in this current modern world that we live in. Not everybody has access to that. So that's actually one of the things I want to do with my channel moving forward, is kind of talk about my experiences with therapy and hopefully share a little bit about like what people can do at home. Yeah, so I just wanted to put that note out there. The tarot is not a substitute for professional mental or physical health advice or help, because there are cards that, you know, there's no cards that guarantee your doom or your downfall, but there are ones that will bring out a sense of discomfort if you're avoiding facing something. The cards never lie, but we do to ourselves all the time. And, you know, I've been in therapy, like I said, for almost a decade now, and I'm still working on being comfortable with uncertainty and facing fears and so on and so forth. The cards don't predict your fate. They don't tell you, like a lot of people will pull like the death card and be like, like, death is actually, that card is much more surrounding like pieces of ourselves dying and being reborn as something new, or clearing old things away to make space for the new. So yeah, make sure you seek professional help if you need it, and just understand that tarot is a tool for reflection and spiritual guidance. My second tip for newbie readers is that you are your own greatest source of wisdom. There is something to be said about your first impressions of a card that comes out and not reaching immediately for a guidebook. I definitely did that every time when I first started out, and there's no shame in it. But the more that I've gotten comfortable with it, the more I trust that whatever comes up to me first is usually the message that's most important, because you are the channel. The tarot is just the tool. We don't read the cards. They help us read ourselves. Huh? Again, you can absolutely read up on traditional meanings to help you have a general guideline if you're very stumped on things. But if you do feel pulled to a non-traditional meaning, listen to that. Traditional meanings can help guide you, but the main insight is your own. It's a practice in self-trust. Many decks come with their own guidebook, which are very useful. Just keep in mind that with each guidebook, there is an author behind it, and the author has their own biases and interpretations. I highly recommend reading through the entire book before deciding whether or not you want to use it as a tool for reference, because sometimes there's guidebooks that are just really doomy or like really just kind of icky negative vibes, and like there are cards that, you know, tell you the honest truth about things and are not always fun to see, especially with people who might struggle with obsessive compulsive tendencies. Like if they are prone to what I was saying before, doom spiraling, it's important to have at least a little like silver lining around things. So if you get an off vibe about a book, just pick something else. I'll give you my references to my favorite resources in another tip, but just for this section, I really like Tarot by Tina Gong, because of the way that she breaks down each card into interpretation, reflection, and action. Like it's just laid out so wonderfully, and it's for uprights and reversals, which is another thing I'm going to get into in another tip. And the author also has a free app that you can download, which I will be talking about later. My third tip for beginners, especially if you're learning how to trust yourself more and trusting your intuition, I suggest learning some of the basics, some of the bare bones of tarot, such as color symbolism, numerology, and each of the element themes of the suits. So earth is pentacles, water is cups, swords are air, and wands are fire. So learning about what the elements mean. This way, no matter what deck you're using, you have a basic understanding of the numerology, the colors, kind of like what to look out for, and how to interpret the imagery. You could even take it a step further and look into the symbolism of different objects in the images. So like mountains represent challenges to overcome, books can indicate knowledge or seeking knowledge, lanterns can indicate clarity or guidance, and so on and so forth. And also there's other little things to note, like which way, if there's a person in the card, which way they're facing. Like if they're, like traditionally speaking, if they're facing left, they are looking to the past. If they're looking straight at you, which I think there's only 2 cards that are looking straight, or 2 or 3 that look directly at you. And those are like present. And then when they're looking to the right, they're looking to the future. Another thing is to explore the relationships between all of the cards. Like the Emperor is closely tied to all the kings, and like the Empress is closely related to all of the queens. And while you're learning about this, it can be helpful to have a little journal, or some like to call it a grimoire, to take notes in. This way you're creating your own personal guidebook in a sense, and you can create like little charts or cheat sheets to help you remember the meanings of the cards. Putting pen to paper is a great way to commit those things to memory, and it's fun to look back on over the years, especially if you start tracking your readings too. And for learning numerology and color symbolism, I do have a couple of posts on my TikTok profile. It's under the favorites tab. It's a public favorites thing, so you can find it easily. For other symbolism, you can find books or just use a search engine like Ecosia, which is not a paid sponsorship, but they plant trees. And it's a much better alternative to the big search engines. So I will always advocate for that. My fourth tip for readers in their infancy is to make it your own. Free yourself from any sort of rigid rules that you think you need to have in order to read the cards, because it'll just stop you from ever starting. Back when I first got into it, I thought I needed to have a perfect setting and be in the best mindset possible, because I think I read that somewhere. Like I read that that's a requirement to reading. As my Virgo self, I took that very, very literally. So I was like, okay, if I have any sort of shrivel of not good feeling, I can't read. And that's just, yeah, So naturally, as someone with obsessive and perfectionistic tendencies, I just avoided them. I avoided reading at all because I thought I needed to be in a perfectly calm, centered headspace. And that line of thinking just caused me to not read at all. Being in a good headspace is ideal, of course, but it's not always possible. So don't let it stop you from just doing it. And of course, use your best judgment. Like if you're in the middle of a breakdown, maybe wait a little bit. Maybe just hold off for like an hour. Calm down a little bit. And if it's truly something that like needs assistance, seek professional help. I just echo what I said before. It does not replace professional help because it can be triggering sometimes. It can trigger worse meltdowns sometimes. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need a little bit of extreme breakdown, but it's also, just use discernment. I urge you to use discernment. But if you feel ready to hear some possibly difficult truths, go for it. It's helped me a lot to just let go of the rules. Cause I've got ADHD. I'm very chaotic sometimes. And if thinking that you need a perfect environment, perfect headspace leads you to task paralysis, you might as well make it easier on yourself. Cause I straight up thought that I had to create like a beautiful altar space. I had to meditate for at least 10 minutes beforehand. I had to do all of these, and like some days I can do that, and some days I want to do that. That's the thing. If I don't want to do that, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna read. Like maybe I'll have like one kind of like anchoring, grounding activity that I do beforehand, but I make it more accessible to myself, like lighting a candle or pouring myself a cup of tea. Sometimes I set up a fancy altar. Sometimes I read, or actually not sometimes, I read every night. I do a little oracle reading every night in my bed. It's duality and it's accommodation. So if you like the words that just came out of my mouth, stay tuned for part 2 because I've got some more things to say. And subscribe. Wow, I did it. That's my first video. Sending lots of love and fulfillment to your new tarot experience, or not new if you're not new to this and this was just a little refresher. I hope you liked it and learned a few things. And catch me on TikTok. I go live on at least twice a week, sometimes more. Otherwise, like, subscribe, comment, whatever, if you want. Okay, bye. Mwah.